Hello and welcome to Cultivating Confidence with Gill and Kirsty. And today we are talking about illuminating storytelling and why stories are important. And of course, in today's market where we are so influenced by AI, a story is really the connection. We start with stories when we are children. From the age of babies, we hear stories. But as usual, we're all bored about hearing from me. So straight over to Jill. You introduce yourself and continue on where I just planted that seed.
So I'm Gill Gayk. I'm your business coach. Stories is really important. Storytelling is how we started off in, entertainment, really, isn't it? And in how we explained things and help people understand them to interpret different things, to interpret our experience into stories. So I think we always connect with a story. So sometimes it's knowing your story or how your skill helps somebody else, and it's by telling a story it really helps. I suppose it's kind of an advance on what we talked about with visuals and a picture saying 1,000 words. A story helps explain concepts. Yeah.
But it's also where we started, where we talk about boundaries, because we've all got a personal story. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. Some of it we just do not want to share. And so when it comes to storytelling, we also have to set our boundaries, because if we overshare in our stories, we can get trolled, we can get picked on, whether we like it or not. But stories are so important. Even if you think back to your in the playground at school. So I'm always going to go back to school because, see, I've got an 8-year-old. You're in the playground at school and you're play acting a story. Now, it might be something you've seen on TV, but stories connect. There are thousands upon thousands of generations of stories. Let's look at Shakespeare and his stories and how he went off. And now we look at Baz Luhrmann, and then we continue on to where we are now. And we've got the story of Romeo and Juliet into West Side Story, into Baz Luhrmann. And here we have these amazing connecting stories, which are told over and over and over again. I don't know if you've got any take on that.
In every culture there's stories. You talk about the Aboriginals, there's storytelling as part of their culture. That's how theatre started in this, with roaming storytellers. If you look at Jesus, Muhammad, Gandhi, all of these people, they all told stories because it's how people understand what you're trying to explain, because sometimes the concept is difficult. And I think what's really important is that we are prepared to help people understand through stories, because otherwise you can go off on tangents, you can get too bogged down with stuff. So it's actually having a clear-cut story with a start, a middle and an end is how we explain ourselves.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Going back to your visuals, a story can just be a simple photograph, because it's a snapshot in time. And that's why your image, when it comes to marketing, your images that you use on your presentation really, really matter. Plus, with the right imagery on your presentation, it can help you know exactly where you are and what you're going to talk about. So when you're doing and weaving your storytelling, your pictures can inform you and your audience.
So you're kind of jumping a little bit, because having just done a workshop with you, I know what you're saying. So what we talked about how to present better on camera, and a lot of that is knowing your story. So it's not about having a script, it's about, if you know your story, then it's easier for you to convey a message. So you don't come across as having done your elevator pitch or whatever it is, which is over scripted, but what you do is you see the images that help you remember your story in a good way, because you can fill in the gaps because you know the story. So my vision, was when we had that conversation, was I draw a lot of trees, because my thing is if you can't see the wood for the trees. So that's what I start with. And so actually when we're having this conversation, I'm remembering that picture I drew on my bit of paper last week when we were talking about it.
I'm loving it when my own training gets thrown back at me. But I have a structure, and we covered that last week in Jumpstart Your Business, and I cover it in pretty much in most of the coaching that I do, because storytelling, if you're not sure of how to do it, now you know how to write stories because we're taught that, but we don't speak the same way as we talk. And that's where people get tripped up, because they're so busy writing the script, they're so busy focusing on it, that they forget that actually the way we talk is not the way we speak. And so I'm going to rephrase that. The way we write is not the way we speak. Good one this morning, Kirsty. And so I use Stanislavski's 7 questions. I know you come on and use your 7 empowering questions, which I want to come on to and how important they are. But Stanislavski was a theatre practitioner, and he predates everybody. He really does. He's brilliant. And an actor, when they're stepping into the role to learn the story of the character, asks the questions. And I have pulled them up this morning because I want to share them. So an actor starts off with boxes. And in those boxes, we write down, who am I? Where am I? So who am I today? Where am I today? Who am I today? Where am I? Who am I interacting with? So the questions are, who am I? Where am I? What do I want? Really important. What do I want? When do I want it? You can see where I'm going with flicking to you in a minute. Why do I want it? How will I get it? And what do I need to overcome to get what I want? And these questions inform everything that an actor does. But these questions can also be used for storytelling, but also for social media. But they also link into your 7 empowering questions, don't they?
Well, it's the 7 7 steps to goal mapping, actually, because in many ways, what we do is when we goal map, we're looking at what is the story we're going to tell ourselves in 5 years' time? What have I achieved? Yeah, and what is it you want, and why do you want it? And how are you going to do it? And it's visualizing it. Have you visualized it? Is it in the right order? So these are all of the steps in the goal mapping process. Is when do I want it again? Because unless you hone down a date, it's just wishful thinking. It's a little bit of a dream. And how do I get that? And who is going to help me, or who am I being to help me? So they are very similar to the Stanislav questions, but it's really important that you know. We talk about in goal mapping, looking and talking in the present tense. So it's about what is the story you're going to be telling in 5 years' time about how successful your business, or what are you going to be celebrating this time next year? What's on your Christmas list of achievements for your business?
And now I just want to, because we've talked about goal mapping, we've talked about a bit of public speaking, but actually stories are what connect to your audience when it comes to selling. It's the most important thing. We talk about our client testimonials and putting them onto our websites, and we talk about showcasing what we've been and where we've been, where we are. Can't even speak this morning. But one of the things we forget is actually it's recounting that story, taking that snippet. And a lot of people do testimonial pages. Stop doing that. Start with putting your little snippets, your little sound bites. That's what they are. Sound bites from customer feedback, actually through your website. Sound bites in your social copy, because that reiterates the story that you were telling. That gives you, I want to say kudos, but I'm not sure if that's the right word I want to use this morning. But it gives you a standing that says, hey, I've worked with this, but this person worked with me and they were really good. Sharing, showcasing, explaining. A lot of the time when it comes to selling, people are pitching. Whereas actually, if you're telling the story, so you look at the situation, reiterating back the situation to the customer, and then actually saying, so, have I got this right? You this, you that, do, using the you, telling that story. Well, for a customer of mine, blah, 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 blah. And you're recanting that story. Now, does that sound good to you? Again, you're giving back to choice and giving sales techniques away here. Ooh, but it's that storytelling, sharing what you've done, which is really important. I'm sure you can expand further on that than I've got.
Yeah. I suppose quite a lot of it is that what it is that you do as a business person, or the service that you offer. But sometimes you are hoping that somebody else sees how they can use your skills in a creative way. And the trouble is that we're not desperately creative. So actually, by telling stories, you can relate it back to somebody. So you can say, oh, a client of mine, this happened with a client of mine, and when we work together, this is the result. Does that resonate with you? Because what we're doing is we're in a sense we're solvers. So yeah, I suppose you want me to come up with an example now and say, it's very simple, like, somebody said they had so many ideas, they didn't know where to start. So actually what we did is we sat down and looked at, okay, if this is what you want in 5 years' time, but you've got so many things on it, so much on your plate at the moment, that time is of the essence. You don't have enough time to do everything. What are the quick wins? So what is going to make the difference now? And so we talk about how we can help relate those stories. So it's doing that whole relating your service to solving a problem. So it's showcasing really, isn't it? Through stories.
And this is another thing with showcasing. So I'm well aware that I'm going on camera. To me, it's like, yeah, I'm going to whack it on. I'm not going to think about it, and I'm going to deliver. But that's because I'm trained. You know, I spent years training as an actor. So one of the things I always say to people is, when you talk on camera, you need to be talking as if you're having I've got it here, a cup of coffee with a friend. So you're telling a story. So what you do when it comes to storytelling is you place your friend behind the camera. And by placing your friend behind the camera, you're no longer talking to the camera, you're talking to the person, and you're talking in a way that you would tell the story just as you were over a cup of coffee or down the pub with your mate. Because ultimately, when you go to the pub or you go for a coffee or you go for lunch, you're telling a story, you're recanting. So even if it's, I got a parking ticket this morning, or I overstayed, or this happened, or, oh, you'll never believe what happened this morning, there was a fire, you know, whatever it is, you are telling a story, and that you're telling it with energy. And as you're telling it, you're seeing those visuals, which brings us back to vision board visionary, and you can see where we're going. It's that whole holistic approach that your story is actually just a way of also speaking.
And funny enough, the whole talking to a friend over a cup of coffee is why we do this, because you've given away the trick now, Kirsty. I'm really upset with you. Because the only reason I do this podcast is with you, because I'm really rubbish at talking to the camera to myself. So I needed someone to bounce off of.
But that's important.
So I would say, but also when we talk mindset, we talk about story. It's the story you tell yourself as well is really important, because if you tell yourself a negative story about yourself, you're just reinforcing the message. So we want to make sure that you are having positive stories about yourself, and you're talking about the things that you do well, not the things, you know, it's not negating that we do sometimes. Well, we all have our challenges. So it's not negating that at all, but it's just making sure that we tell ourselves the right stories, and we tell our clients and the people around us the right stories that support our message.
And again, that takes you back to this emotional connection. And I love what Stanislavski says. And of course, I'm going to talk about Stanislavski. But everyone at every minute of his life must feel something. Only the dead have no sensation. And it's the whole.
No, but it's true, isn't it? We all feel something. You know, it can be anything. You know, you smell a cup of coffee and you just go, oh, lost, yeah, or you see something run across the road in front of a car and you'll go like that. So you are feeling something, aren't you, all of the time? So it's that whole.
Which now brings me on to, of course, another Stanislavski technique, because, hey, I'm going to talk about Stanislavski this morning. And that brings me to thought, memory, recall, which is another beautiful acting technique. And that is where you think about the situation. So when you're telling a story, and this is really good for boundaries, okay, and this is where my aim comes in. So as you're recanting a story and you're remembering, particularly if it's an emotional one, you can get tripped up. And so by thought, memory, recall, by always remembering it, recalling it, you're in control. And if you do feel that the emotions are coming up and overwhelming you, you can acknowledge it and go, that's okay, this is a weird situation. You can identify where it's coming from. So you've acknowledged it. Oh, I'm feeling nervous. Oh, I'm feeling emotional. Oh, I feel I might cry. But as soon as you identify I might cry, you take control of it. So you take control of the story narrative. And this is where a lot of speakers get really, really tripped up, because instead of holding the emotion, they try to squish it down. Now, if you're recanting a real life story, and it's a painful one, you are going to have those emotions come up. Thought, memory, recall. It takes you back to the place, it takes you back to the visuals, and it takes you back to exactly where you have been. So you have to use this technique of, take a breath, own your moment. Absolutely own it, and then you're in control, not the nerves controlling you. And again, I'm going to expand for hours on this, but you can see Stanislavski is quite important to me.
Yeah, but it's quite interesting when you talk about public speaking or doing any speaking, that and your story being emotive, because it needs to be emotive. It needs, because it's what motivates you, so it's what motivates other people, and actually showing how your emotions in that moment, or how passionate you feel about something, is extraordinarily powerful. And it's back to that word that some people, the authenticity. And that's what I think, certainly when you're in an entrepreneurial space, it's the authenticity that is really important, because that emotion is the reason you're in business, and it's your driving force. And so that actually embracing that is really important and challenging.
Yeah, and if you look at the stories that, I mean, we're talking about stories, we're talking about sharing, but these stories need to be interwoven through everything that you do. And a lot of people think, oh, I've told a story once, I don't need to say it again. But actually, only a small percentage of your audience have actually watched. I mean, look at this now. We don't know how many people are going to watch this episode. We don't know how many people watch it on YouTube, but only a small percentage of the people we know will actually watch it. And so we've been talking about stories today, but actually we can recount them, we can retell them, we can reuse them, we can repurpose them, and we can just never not tell the truth. That's really important, because, and that's another thing with camera, the camera will know instantly if you're lying. So this is where people look fake or uncomfortable on camera. The camera always shows up a lie, but the camera also likes you to pause and think. So there's a couple of things that are really important, but be authentic, stick to the truth, but don't feel that you can't retell a story, because every time you tell it, you'll tell it differently as well.
Well, that's about having an authentic story, isn't it? Because you bring different things in. If it's a scripted story, it will be the same everything. I think if you ask anybody that's at a crime scene, that if everyone's story is the same, then there's collusion, because everybody has a different opinion. So actually, your story is more authentic if it's slightly different each time, because actually, we remember things slightly differently, or the emphasis is slightly different depending on your audience or the conversation that you've just had. So I think that's really important.
And I think that's really cool, because one of the things that there's a book, I think it's Tiddler's story, or Tiddler. It's one of those books, absolutely brilliant, and it's about Tiddler's story, and it's one of the books that I've been reading to my daughter. And Tiddler goes out, and he's always late for school, always late for school, and he always creates these stories of why he's late for school, and it's that telling tales thing. I'm late for school because of da 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 da, but he gets lost, and he's completely lost, and it's his stories. The stories that are told to him about this little fish called Tiddler that help him find his way home. And I think there's a real nice link here, that actually, if you hear a story, sometimes you hear it and you go, oh my goodness, that's about me. Wow, I didn't realize you knew that about me. And it's like a real moment of going, and it validates you, doesn't it?
Well, it validates a bit. I suppose that we connect over stories, because it's having similar experiences that help you connect with someone, because you kind of go, oh yeah, I recognize myself in that. So or oh, if they can do it, that's why we have motivational speakers, because you go, oh, if they can do it, then I can do it. So it's a little bit like that kind of thing. It's how you connect with people through their stories and the conversations. It's interaction, isn't it? It's interaction, conversations. Do we have anyone interacting with us today?
Not at the moment, no, but that's okay. That's kind of. Oh, actually, we've got some people watching. So, just one of the things I want to talk about is you talked about mindset, and I know that you're you cover off mindset really well in your coaching, and you have a brilliant quote. Now, I heard this quote from my mom, so this was really interesting when it came up, because even though I've been through your trainings and I've heard that quote many, many times, I've also heard my mom say it, but I never made the connection until last week, because you posted it on LinkedIn. And in that post, I went, oh, my mum always says that. I've been in the training the day before. I just think this is hysterical. But I want you to explain a little bit more about this mindset and how important it is to your self story.
Yeah, so the self stories, if the story I told is that whole thing, and I think everyone can relate to that, is that moment when you put your car keys down somewhere and you can't find them, and you say to yourself, I can't find my car keys, I've lost my car keys, I can't find my car keys. What happens is there's a little bit of self-hypnosis going on there, So you're telling yourself, you're telling your brain that you can't see them. And that is when you have that moment when your car keys can be right in front of your face, but you've told your subconscious that you can't find them and you can't see them. So do you know what? It doesn't see them. And I mean, we all know that thing. So actually, if you change the narrative, which is, I can see my car keys, I put them down here somewhere, they are visible, I will see them now. The chances are you will see them now. So it's that whole thing is whatever you tell yourself, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you are right. And that was a quote from Henry Ford that is kind of retold in lots of different ways. But the point is it's that's very much the story you tell yourself. I can't find my car keys. No, you won't. And we all know, we've all got people in our family that, you know, they lose their wallet, their glasses. In our family, it's quite often the remote control of the TV. Yeah, but you know, it's that you all lose them. And we all know that story. And there's always somebody you can't see, you know, you can't see what's in front of your face. It's because of the story you're telling yourself. Or it's that whole thing is I'm rubbish at that. Yeah. Yeah. If you keep telling yourself that, then you really will be. And so what we do a lot with the coaching is challenge your mindset. So tell yourself a different story. Start and actually everyone can, you know, do that today, really, is tell yourself a different story, is, you know, I'm going to get through, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, I've
whatever
done
it
it
is important for you to get through today is, yeah, you can do it.
I've done it many a time. And I going on to stories, one of my favorite stories for motivation is actually Alice in Wonderland. And people always go, why? I always call my Alice moments. And that's where you jump into the hole or you crawl through the door and you find Eat Me or Drink Me and you've got no idea what's going to happen and you just fall. And in that falling, sometimes you've got that peace and you've got that moment of thought or that moment of clarity. Sometimes you're just falling and falling and falling, thinking, I'm going to keep falling, but I'm yet to hit the bottom. And again, it's that inspiration from stories. You know, I go back to children's books because we start there. We start with Once Upon a Time in a Land Far Away, or There Was a Girl. So we all start. And this is something that I really want to talk about is Once Upon a Time in a Land Far Away. There once was a girl. If we think about Black Beauty, I can't remember the first name of the book, but the first line of the book. If you think about stories, we think about Shakespeare particularly, or even Federico Garcia Lorca. We look at how a play or a story or a book opens. Does it ever open with the name Kirsty Vanderbilk was sitting on a bench by the side of the lock? Yet to find a book that would open like that. If it did, would we continue on reading, or would it be a much more picture of the lock pulling us in, telling us the story to set the scene? And it's one of the things that we have a lot of the time is people stand up on stage and go, I'm Kirsty Vanderbilk and I'm going to talk about, and that doesn't pour anyone in. So imagine doing it differently. And it's like, imagine a place where you are comfortable and confident to walk up on the stage and own your presence. I'm Kirsty Vanderbilk, and today I'm going to talk. It's just setting that scene at the beginning of your story. If you're going on camera, if you're public speaking, please don't open with your name. If you go networking, people want to know what you do. They'll come and find out your name later. So start with what you do or how you help, how you serve, rather than I'm this. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that one.
I suppose it's that whole, it's how you engage with people, isn't it? And it's that whole engaging thing. And I think that's with the story, isn't it? Is what you want to do is engage people. And it's the same with whatever mode of communication you use, is how can you it's not suck somebody in. How do you want to get them to want to know more? So it's wanting to know more.
And one of the things.
How do we do that, Kirsty? What do you reckon?
Should we stop now? No, I call it planting the seed. So I love planting the seed. Planting the seed is a sales technique. So if you want to sell something and it's kind of the add-on that you want to sell, then you plant the seed and you throw it away. So when it comes to using public speaking, you're coming to using presenting camera, I've got a freebie on this. You just have to keep planting the seed. So planting a new hook. But a lot of the time you can plant a hook, but you actually have to go back to it. So you have to have a tenacious link. So plant the seed, hook, plant the seed, hook, move on. And it's a bit like me moving on this camera. Dunk, da dunk, da dunk. And it's more like a chess game in a lot of ways. You're moving forward, you're moving back, you're moving forward, you're moving sideways, you're moving forward, you're moving back, but you're always going around your 3 subjects, your 3 points. So whatever it is, now today, storytelling. Of course, I'm going to talk about Stanislavski. There were 3 things I wanted to talk about with Stanislavski. I've done it in this podcast. I wanted to talk about the 7 questions. I wanted to use a quote from Stanislavski, and I wanted to talk about thought, memory, recall. Now, I haven't planned or scripted this. You know that. We are totally off grid, as per usual. But I knew I wanted to talk about these 3 things. And we have talked all the way around, but I've brought in Stanislavski 3 times in this point. And I know that people are going to go off and look at I can't even say him, Konstantin Stanislavski, and find out about the man. If there's, I've got, oh, look, like a plug. There's 2 blogs about it. But you can see for me, I had a no structure, but a plan. Well, my 3 points about Stanislavski. That's how you tell a story. You got any feedback for me?
Yeah, I suppose, but I suppose what most people struggle with is that they relate to your story and they can say, oh, that sounds great, but my story is not interesting or my story is boring. So I think that's the biggest challenge is trying to draw out your story. And that's where having a good, a sparring partner helps, or somebody that can help you draw that out. That's where coaching comes into play in many ways, because retelling your story helps, it certainly helps me understand who you are, what your business is and how you see it, and then actually reflecting back to people. So it's really important. That's it's a technique for reflecting back and drawing out what's important, and what you think is important might not necessarily be what your audience finds important. And that's why it's really valuable to have somebody to help you with that. And that's in lots of different ways. That's why outsourcing sometimes is really valuable. So having a conversation which helps you recognize what your story is and pick out the valuable parts of it, and the things that are useful to other people. That's really important. So and also it helps build your strategy for your business, because if you know what value you're giving to other people, then it means that you can embody that much more. You go, okay, this is the value I get, so this is a strategy for my business, and this is where I want to take it forward. And so it's that, and then you can start to go, okay, if this is the strategy for my business, because I want to be able to deliver this, so then it becomes much more obvious what it is that you deliver as a business or as a consultant or person, whatever it is that you're doing.
And a story
and it applies for the same for career. So you don't have to own your own business, but it's what you personally bring to a business or a job or a role or anything. So it's that's what really it really helps by retelling your story or getting out those things. And we've all done quite amazing things, but we just palm them off as normal, just getting through the day. And sometimes they're not. Frequently they're not.
I'm going to just overrun here on this a little bit, because I think it's really important. I've got a mate who is now looking for a job, and one of the things he missed off on their on his CV was he missed off his hobbies, which he thought were totally irrelevant. They were something. He likes tinkering with things. So sorry, you know who you are. He likes tinkering with things. He likes playing with electronics and building things, and he'd missed off all of this from his CV. That personal statement at the top of your CV, it's not just the same on LinkedIn, to be honest, that personal bit about who you are. Why would somebody want to work with you? That is also about your hobbies. It's also about what you do. I know some people go, oh, don't say you're a mother or a father. Actually, if you're a family person, there's nothing wrong with sharing it. It's part of who you are. And in some organizations, they want a family person. And if they don't want a family person, is that the organization you want to work with? Because it's who you are. Your story absolutely defines every part of you. So don't try and hide it. Yes, control it, but don't try and hide it, because people buy people. People buy from you. If you're a small business owner, people buy from you. If you're going for an interview today and you're worried, oh, I can't share that because, well, actually, that might be the one nugget that makes you different to the next candidate. So own your story, because it's really important, because it is ultimately who you are.
Yeah,
That
it's
sounded
our
quite
experience.
old. Oh,
Yeah. I can say your experiences shape you, and actually that's what makes you different from everybody else. That's why we're not all
absolutely.
clones.
Exactly. We don't want to be lemmings. Thank you again for your time. I've loved this conversation. Next week, you're in control. Next month, you're in control of it, which I really love. I love the fact that we get to share this, and we will have a conversation over a cup of coffee. And it's just great to be your mate. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for being the other side of the camera and giving me somebody to talk to. Yeah, really great to chat to anyone, and we'd love your comments. So if you've got anything that you'd like to comment with, or yeah, tap us up and come and tell us your stories. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'll post a link into the storytelling questions in all the comments. Brilliant.
awesome. Catch you soon.
Bye.